Hello, and welcome to AML Backstage, in fact, our first episode. I'm Dean Delp, and today we're joined by the illustrious, the inimitable, the most excellent, and highly revered Laura Gayle Green.
Wow, that's quite a welcome.
Well, it's going to be quite a show.
We'll try.
Let's jump right in. So I wanted to start with something a little more casual, something fun, something that I think all of us are trying to find right now, which is a little bit of downtime, and how to fill it wisely. Some of us maybe have too much of it. Others, I feel like, at least for myself, I'm busier now than I was before the pandemic. But you have an evening of leisure to yourself, no commitments, no distractions, no pressure. And during this downtime, you can choose something to eat, something to drink, something to listen to, and something to read. What are your choices?
Well, I'm going to riff off of that a little bit.
Please.
Because an ideal evening for me during this pandemic, because I can't get together with my friends and make music,
Right.
it involves knitting, reading or watching something on Netflix or BritBox, and I'm enjoying an old-fashioned alcoholic drink.
Classic choice.
Yes, or a decaf Earl Grey tea.
Also an excellent choice.
Yes.
And then into one that I know I would struggle if someone asked me this question. So I'm very curious to see what your answer will be. What are you known for?
Well, I would like to think that I'm known for being kind, caring, and approachable. I would also like to think I'm known for finding the unfindable.
Certainly, I believe this is the case. Definitely.
So, yeah.
Where were you born, and what was it like growing up there, or did you move around a whole lot?
Well, I did not move around. I grew up in small town, rural Virginia. The town is, it's called Rocky Mount. It's south of Roanoke, and it's up against the Blue Ridge Mountains. That part of Virginia is primarily known for agriculture, dairy farms, peach and apple orchards, tobacco farming, and then there's moonshine, which is, yeah, that's a whole nother story for another time. And if your family didn't farm, your family members likely worked in one of the factories. So when I grew up there were a number of woodworking factories, so like Lane Furniture, and Bassett Furniture was not far away.
Sounds very Norman Rockwell, like with the farm, but then also that like industrial life that's still there.
Yes, but not as much anymore because so much of those jobs have moved to overseas factories.
Right.
There are also window factories. So my dad was a mechanic on farm machinery, so he worked on tractors, hay balers, combines, that sort of equipment. And my mom worked in her first factory job was at DuPont in Martinsville, and then she worked in various woodworking factories, textile factories, and in a window plant before she retired. Much of my extended family lived in the area, so even though I was an only child, I grew up with cousins around me, and so I was close with them. And both sets of grandparents lived in the area, so I saw my extended family all the time.
Very connected.
Oh yes.
Very connected.
So I would see each set of grandparents every weekend until he died. When I was 4 or 5, I saw my great grandfather, and regularly visited other, great aunts and great uncles. So yeah, very interconnected. I could run, play in the pasture, the creeks, watch the cows gather eggs, lop hogs, all sorts of things. The biggest things I had to worry about really were looking out for poisonous snakes and stepping in cow manure.
So coming from that, which is certainly different than Tallahassee, of course, but how is that starting there and getting to where you are now? What was that academic journey like, or maybe the journey of education to get there?
Sure. So I'm old enough that I remember segregation and integration. My first year of public schools was the first year it was integrated in my home county.
Wow.
And while for me personally, that wasn't new because school was new, right?
Right. So you just probably, I mean, did you just assume like, okay, this is a new thing, it's new anyway, or was there a sense of cultural weight to that for you?
For me, there really wasn't.
Right.
I think for others, it definitely was. I do remember the signs at water fountains in public places, that there were separate water fountains. And so I think one of the reasons I want to mention that is that I'm really struck by the fact that our society has not come as far as I would have liked in 50 plus years. And that ties into an extent to my education because I'm a first generation college student. And as someone who went to school for music, my high school guidance counselors didn't know what to do with me.
Right.
And my own path has changed a bit. I started piano late for someone who was a piano major. I originally started as someone who wanted to be a church musician, so leading choirs, that sort of thing. That path changed. I also, for a semester, wanted to be a composition major, but everything sounded like bad Barry Manilow. So I wound up being a piano performance major, and I went to two small schools undergraduate. One was in Virginia, and it was a private institution associated with the church and our specific denomination, and then I went to a school in northern Ohio. And I went to that school specifically to study with a specific piano teacher, and that was a great experience for several reasons. One, it was a small school, and so I was able to really be nurtured. I will never forget that they saw something in me to be nurtured, and they took time and they took energy and effort. And I think about that in just about every student interaction I have. There is someone else saw something in them.
Right.
And I want to see a bit of that as well. To meet whatever need they have, direct them appropriately, because someone directed me and took an interest.
Right. Well, the position that you have here, I'm sure, allows you to do that, to great extent sometimes. What is your, I guess, personal history with this library?
I started here in 2012, so that ties back into the academic and professional journey. After I finished my undergrad in piano performance, Bachelor of Music Piano Performance, I went and got a master's in musicology, and then while I was accepted into PhD programs, I really was concerned about getting a job. Being first generation college, coming from the kind of background I did, I had to support myself.
Right.
My parents helped me some undergrad, but grad school, I was totally on my own, and that's fine. Not a problem. But it really made me think about what the next steps were. The music librarian at my first graduate program suggested that I think about being a music librarian. And at first I thought she was nuts. But as she asked me more about what my goals were, the kind of work environment I wanted, it seemed like it was a good fit. I took 2 years off from school to work, and wound up working on a grant position in the music library at that institution. Then went to library school at Indiana University and got an MLS with a specialization in music librarianship. I worked there for 2.5 years on another grant position, and then went to University of Missouri, Kansas City in early 1993, and I was there for almost 20 years. And then this position came open at FSU, and there are a number of faculty who have graduated from FSU, gone to UMKC, and some have come back to work here on the faculty at FSU. And so I was contacted by one of them who said, we've got an opening. You may want to pass this along to anyone you know who would be interested. And of course, it was like,
I'm interested.
maybe it's time for a change. So I applied, interviewed, and came in 2012. Never thought I'd want to live in Florida, but here I am.
Of course, you have been at this library, I believe you said, since 2012. And that's quite a long time, and I would say that you are certainly a well-known figure, at least in this particular area of the campus.
Okay.
My question is, what is the most important thing that you do for the library that no one ever sees?
Budget. Manage the budget. What does that mean? So, what books do we buy? What scores do we buy? What don't we buy? How much do we spend on binding? How much do we allocate to replacing equipment? How much money do we have to replace equipment? Clearly we haven't had money to replace chairs, since these are from 1979.
Fun fact.
Fun fact, yes. Well, there are other folks responsible for various aspects of the budget in the music library, like Avis manages the student assistant budget. I'm the one that looks at all of it and thinks about what we can spend, what we can reallocate, what can be changed around. So, for example, in the pandemic, we really need more online resources.
Right.
Okay, since we don't have people coming in, and we had a number of students who were not even in Tallahassee. That's why we've licensed Encoda, which is it's a way that you can get to music scores that you can perform on your tablet.
Right. You talked about the virus, which it's sort of become like a Godwin's law, right? That it's just impossible to, you're only one or two topics away from it at all times because it's so pervasive. But what is a silver lining for you in the library context during that whole period right now? What's been something that has been able to shine through as, well, at least there's this?
Silver linings. I really think seeing how people pull together during this time has really been a silver lining. At least the people that I surround myself with and the people I work with in general have pulled together and really made the best of a difficult situation. In the music library particularly, our staff have been willing to rethink completely
everything,
how things are done, and how to adjust what we're doing, how we're doing it to best meet the patron needs and still maintain a level of safety for everyone.
And you also mentioned about this within Coda of it not being maybe it's not a super long-term replacement, but that leads into the question I wanted to ask about sort of the future of music libraries, libraries in general. What does that look like?
There are so many different ways to look at this. Let's start with how we think of technology right now. And that has been our saving grace, so to speak, during the pandemic, right? But it's also been a dividing line, right? I mean, even even Encoda, us subscribing to Encoda is creating a dividing line because not everyone can afford to own a tablet, and that bothers me. Right? We're providing something that not everyone can access. I went ahead and did it because I've seen enough students with them to feel like it would provide a benefit.
Net benefit.
Right. Another challenge is that over my career, I have seen specialized libraries or librarians become generalists. It depends on your environment. It depends on the environment of the institution, but I think there are areas like medicine, music, law, art, dance, science, I mean, basically a number of subject areas where you really still need subject specialists, particularly at larger institutions or institutions with focused programs.
Yeah, certainly there's a richness that's lost in generality.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And so, on a final note, last question, what is next for you in the short term, but also in the long?
Well, short term, several things. I'm working on a third master's.
I don't know whether I should say congratulations or I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm taking courses in the instructional systems and learning technologies master's program. Long term, well, good question. I mean, you know, I'll retire eventually. Certainly not anytime soon unless I win the lottery, but I rarely play the lottery.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to travel, but I'm really looking forward to post-pandemic life, what that looks like.
Right.
Being able to get together with people again.
Well, I think we all are, and maybe on that very understandable note, we'll probably call that good.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much. This was
Thank you.
entirely my pleasure.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks so much for listening to this first episode of AML Backstage. We appreciate your time and your viewership, and we hope to see you next episode.